Don Schoendorfer is an engineering whiz. He's got more than 60 patents, but he gave up dreams of high-tech riches to make an inexpensive and durable wheelchair for the neediest people on Earth. 16 years and 90 countries later, he's given out 1 million of them. The remarkable, heart-wrenching, and heart-warming story of Don Schoendorfer and Free Wheelchair Mission. He's next on Inside OC. Inside OC is brought to you by...
Each new community 5 Point brings to life represents a promise delivered. Great neighborhoods are more than just places to live, they are places to connect. 5 Point is a proud sponsor of public television and community programming.
Chapman University is a proud sponsor of Inside OC and community programming.
More and more frequent.
Yeah, that's for sure, for sure. Well, hi, I'm Rick Reiff, and I'm talking with Don Schoendorfer. So, Don, great to have you on. Your story is so incredible, what you have done distributing 1 million wheelchairs to people around the world. But before we get into that story, just tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I guess I was born to be an engineer. My father was a machinist for the New York Central Railroad, and I had 2 older brothers that were engineers, and we never got rid of anything. We always fixed things around the house, and I just wanted to be an engineer from the beginning, and so I focused on that as my education and my career, and got involved in biomedical engineering in the early 70s, which is sort of a new thing, and got into blood cell separating equipment and diagnostic equipment and kind of things you'd see in our hospitals.
Right, and so that's how you got 60 patents. So is there something that you've patented that people would be familiar with?
Well, again, if you donate blood, chances are there's something that you're going to see that I helped make or helped invent. And if you're a patient and you have something that requires a blood products, then there's even more back in the back room that's going on that you don't usually see. But
wow. Okay, so that's your career path here. You're a technologist and you're working on this stuff. How do you wind up making an inexpensive and durable wheelchair?
Well, there must have been something about wheelchairs in my life. I got this wheelchair from the Civil War in the living room, and my wife always wanted to get rid of this thing because why do you need a wheelchair in the living room? I thought it was beautiful, but most people thought it was kind of odd. Why don't you put it someplace else, like in the garage? And then we were on our vacation, just starting our careers. My wife for Social Security, me for this blood cell separating company, 1979, and we're on a vacation in Morocco. It was the first chance I got to really visit a developing country. And a lot of things I couldn't understand, religion and the poverty and the society. And this old part of town, this woman I see trying to get across this dirt road in the Medina with her fingernails. They're digging him into the ground and dragging herself across the road, and she's bleeding. Her clothes are in shreds. She's filthy, and she doesn't want to do anything but look at the ground and hope nobody steps on her.
Wow.
And the curious, even worse than that, seeing her, or maybe equally bad, was seeing the people around her just not try to step on her, but not doing anything to help her. It was like, that's just life. She's doomed to be on that ground, and
so that stuck with you.
Yes, I mean we want to fix something like that. There's the American reaction. Let's go fix it. And I'm looking around. There's no way to get a wheelchair. No way to fix it. I couldn't talk to her, and we just had to turn our backs and walk away, and that's what we did.
Wow. And so it wasn't right away that you started making wheelchairs, but talk about that. What finally got you to do that?
Well, then it was almost 20 years later, and meanwhile I'm on this dream of becoming the billionaire in Orange County lifestyle and the house and getting kids through private school and all this, and then we started having challenges with our teenagers, daughters. As you can imagine, anybody having kids, there's challenges that come with them, and it brought us to our knees. Having to surrender because we couldn't solve these problems. Brought us back to church, started to realize that these problems are big enough. God's going to have to work on them for us. We can't solve them. And then in that process, realizing, I'm here on a Sunday, but I go back to work on a Monday. My lifestyle is not changed. So then I'm thinking, man, I should not just be a pedestrian in this process. I should be a participant. So I started to volunteer at the church. Mariner Church is a wonderful church for Orange County, and they had lots of opportunities to go and help people. Mm-hmm. So I tried doing things like tutoring. I figured with my education, I can certainly help people in high school. Yeah. But it wasn't working. And then I tried mentoring people, and I'm not a psychologist. I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. And these people who needed a client, a mentor, didn't want somebody who's 55 who seems to have everything together. Mm-hmm. And then it was all of a sudden, it was almost like one day I got a phone call from God. He said, Don, you're not listening. I gave you these talents and you're using ones you're not even good at. You should practice the talents I gave you to do something. I mean, I didn't get that phone call, but looking back at it, that was sort of the feeling I got. Yeah. Why don't you figure out something that an engineer can do to help the developing world? Huh. And then all of a sudden, this thinking of this woman in Morocco comes back to me, and then there's this Civil War wheelchair in my living room, which was a great place to start. And then I started doing some research, and I realized that there's maybe over 100 million people like this woman in Morocco. 100 million people. It's an estimate. And why is it an estimate? Because, well, if we can't solve a problem, why do you care how big it is? Huh. And so that's even more alarming. Wow. So then, I'm thinking 100 million, okay, and now who's working on this problem and what have they done? And I talked to all the groups I could in the world by internet. It was just coming out in the early 90s, and I added up all that they had given out in those years, maybe 2 decades, and they had provided 100,000 wheelchairs to 100 million people. And they had put their hearts into this work. Mm-hmm. It's their passion. And you guys are doing great. And for 100,000 people, I bet they're really happy. But what about the 99.9 million that are remaining?
Well, let's pause here and let's continue this story. But let's see a video that you have done that I think will give viewers a really good synopsis on the story of Free Wheelchair Mission.
Greetings. I'm Don Schoendorfer. I'm the president and founder of Free Wheelchair Mission. About 12 years ago, we discovered this ugly truth that there's over 100 million people without a wheelchair. Living in the back room, not being able to see the sun, not being able to feel fresh air, not to be able to see the blue sky. We don't believe we were meant to crawl on the ground, live on the ground, and we wanted to do something about it. Thus was the birth of Free Wheelchair Mission. Ten years ago, we came up with this very basic wheelchair, durable, functional, rugged, simple, and yet inexpensive. And our idea then until this day is to give these chairs away to the poorest of the poor in developing countries. No strings attached.
We're at CMCT in Chennai, India, and they told us that they've given out about 2,000 of these wheelchairs. It's got another container.
It's quite an experience when you actually show up at somebody's home, especially when they're not expecting you, because they've been waiting for a wheelchair maybe for 25 years. And you put them in the chair and they instantly gain this dignity of sitting up straight.
So, Don, I got to tell you, there are many videos on the Free Wheelchair Mission website, and when I see that, I mean, it's heart-wrenching. It's hard to watch these, the story of what you've done and not tear up. I mean, it's really emotional.
When you see somebody who really isn't sure what's happening, I can't explain it, you're there to give them a wheelchair. They may have been waiting 25 years. They may have given up, even thinking they'd ever get one. And then they're on the ground. So they don't feel like they're equal to you. And they're looking at your shoes. And you pick them up and you put them in a chair. And they're holding on to you because they're afraid you're going to drop them. And you're holding on to them because you're afraid you're going to drop them. And you put them back in that chair. And they won't let go because they don't want to have anybody know they're crying. Because you've just gotten to the basis of their heart.
And you're crying too.
And you're crying too. And you look around and the family is crying too because they see maybe it's grandpa, maybe it's their son, who knows who this is, a daughter, it could be an individual that they've put their life into keeping alive the best they can without any medical intervention at all, because in these countries there is none. So they can't walk, I gotta take care of them. They're doing their best against all the odds to try to keep this person alive. And then you show up and you give them this chair, and suddenly they're on level with you, on your eye-to-eye level, and they don't even look like the same person any longer. It's like a new person. It's like a renaissance of a personality right there in front of you. It all happens in about 30 seconds.
And you are now, you've done this in 90 countries. And let me, I've got a list of the countries here, and you talk about any troubled spot. I mean, and these are Afghanistan, Albania, Angola, Chile, China, Egypt, El Salvador, Iraq, Pakistan, Rwanda, Sri Lanka, Uganda. I mean, you just go on and on. How do you get into these? Well, I guess you must have used your engineering or something, but how do you, first of all, make this wheelchair, make it inexpensive, get it into these countries, distribute it? There's a lot involved in it.
Well, you try to simplify things as much as possible. In our country, we have wheelchairs that are very complex, and I would want one too because I could afford it mainly. But you can get rid of a lot of complexities. You can actually get the chair down to its basic chair wheels. That's really kind of, and then the first one, that's all it was, a white resin lawn chair and wheels.
A lawn chair. The typical lawn chair is what you use.
$4 from Home Depot over in Tustin. Right next to Home Depot was Toys R Us, and that's where I got the bicycles. And I just figured I got to put these together somehow. And I made one, and I made 100, and then that's where we got started. But it's a good chair for an adult like you or me. We could fit it in this chair. We wouldn't need a lot of support. But if you start looking with these complex disabilities and they need a lot of support from the chair, it helps them live longer, helps them grow straighter. Then you need a chair that has adjustable features. And that was this sort of the chapter 2 and chapter 3 of Free Wheelchair Mission.
Okay, so now the chairs you make now are a little different than the original lawn chair with a wheel on it.
Yes.
But you say you still use the lawn chairs.
There's some places in the world that's the most complicated thing they can take. They don't want it. We've given them the more complicated chairs because they need training. The more complicated chairs, we have to train people how to use these chairs. It takes 5 days to train these people.
You went through a lot originally, like going through customs, and it cost more to get the chair through customs than it did to make the chair. And you've learned how to, like now you kind of, everything's assembled on site in the countries you go to. Explain what you've done.
Well, it's a kit, because the wheelchair is a kit. You can get 550 in a container, which is how we ship them, ocean container. Whereas if they're assembled, you get 200. And well, the thing is, the people that are waiting for the wheelchairs are not at the port waiting for the ship to come in. They're in the interior of the country. So our partners have to transport them from the port up to the mountains, the desert, into the jungle. And so they don't want to take up any more room. They get to the person's front door sometimes, and that's where they assemble the wheelchair. And we give them the tools, we give them all the training so they can make all the adjustments.
And who are the people doing these things?
These are
the volunteers.
We call them distribution partners, and we go through a pretty extensive vetting process. They're primarily Christian mission organizations around the world. Some are single nation, some are multinational, like World Vision, Operation Blessing, Food for the Poor, Food for the Hungry, big organizations that operate in many countries. And some of them you would never even know of unless you're in that country because they don't have a website, they don't advertise, there's no reason to. But these are people that have donated their lives, dedicated their lives to helping people for various reasons. And we come along and say, would you like a new reason? here's a wheelchair. Would you like to be a partner to give these wheelchairs away? Well, they usually say, well, could we have 30 wheelchairs? Because that's how many we know. No, you have to take 550. And there's usually a discussion back and forth. And then all of a sudden, we convince them, if you're not careful, there'll be 550 people camping outside your building waiting for these chairs. Yeah. You've got to be very careful about how you distribute these. And 2% of the world needs a wheelchair. So it's not hard in the city to find 2% of the people in disability who have a physical disability. And,
wow.
And then there's another 2 to 3% of the world who's taking care of the 2%. So this is like a 5 or 6% problem in the world that's unaddressed.
Wow. Now, in some of these countries, I mean, you have had some experiences. You said you were in Angola during a civil war. What was that like?
Well, it was, people didn't know how to smile. They had lost the ability to smile there. It was such a tragic place, and they've all come to Luanda. What a wonderful name for a city, Luanda. Sounds very romantic, and that was their sort of their way of keeping alive. Go live in the capital, and there was probably 5 women to every man because the men were either fighting or killed during the rebel fighting, and they were just so depressed, and you put somebody in a wheelchair, and they would just still they wouldn't be able to smile. They were so.
Do you ever have trouble with regimes, or you have to pay bribes to warlords or things like that?
We let our partners handle that. One of the smartest things we've figured out is we shouldn't be giving these chairs away ourselves. We provide them to someone else to give away because every country has their own little things, unique cultures and ways of getting stuff done. So, okay, here's the container of wheelchairs. You have to give them away. We have some requirements. No discrimination, man, woman, sex, age, religion, no matter what. If they need a chair, they get a chair. Secondly, they have to be so poor they can't buy a chair, which almost goes without saying, because if you're disabled in the developing world, you're pulled into poverty. And your family is, because they're staying home from work to take care of you. And then you can't already have a chair. Well, chances are they're not going to find somebody who already has a chair, but those are the 3 requirements. And you give these chairs away to the best of your ability, and if you have a chance, if there is religious freedom in your country, and you have a chance to tell them what Free Wheelchair Mission believes is that this is a gift from God. We're messengers. We are only we're delivering God's love, and when you're in this chair, we want you to feel like you're in God's hands. And the reason why that's important is most of the world believes that disability is a curse. And you live with it. You deserve it, and you live with it, and God doesn't love you because He would, if He did, you wouldn't have this disability. So you have the spiritual disability in addition to a physical one. And so we don't believe that. We don't believe God is like that, and we want you to know what we believe, and here's your chair.
And you said that's a message. I'm starting to tear up right now. You got me, Don. But there are some places you can't say that?
A lot of countries, there's no religious freedom.
So there you distribute them, but you don't give that message.
Yes, and there's a lot of times there's still a Christian mission organization working there. They just work with those constraints. And sometimes we give away wheelchairs in Syria to the refugee camps, but it's a Christian organization that's doing that, but they have to be very careful what they say.
Wow.
We had the U.S. military bringing chairs into Iraq. They brought in almost 30,000 chairs into Iraq, and the U.S. military isn't known for its Christian missionary work, right? It's an army. Wow. But they were doing things for humanitarian purposes and delivering chairs, and that was the only way you're going to get chairs into Iraq, was that the military did it.
Wow. And Don, you have had you've gone through quite a bit in the last month or so, because your wife Laurie passed away, and it just happened. So thanks again for coming on the show. With having endured that, and she was an integral part of what you've done. Yeah, she's the one that forced me to get the first 100 chairs out of the garage, which was a spouse's way of pushing you on. And then when I came back from, we got a chance. I wanted to do a clinical trial, because that's what I did as a career. I did clinical trials, got products through the FDA. I knew how to do these 300-page safety and efficacy studies. So I was going to do this with these first 100 chairs. Go to India, and I only brought 4 wheelchairs with me, because that was all we could figure out. I come back from this trip to India, and I go into work that Monday, and I noticed there's hardly anybody around. And the company went bankrupt while I was gone. So the company you were
Well,
working
I
yeah.
was working for was a fingerprint biometrics company.
Yeah.
Remember back in the late 90s, we thought we were going to get money from the bank with our thumbprints.
Right, right.
Well, it was a little early. And then I come home and, we're kind of struggling because my wife was a full-time mom, stay-at-home mom. And then after about 2 months, she said, Don, you gave me 15 years to raise kids and I didn't have to work. It's my turn. I'm going back to work. You make this work. You make Free Wheelchair Mission work.
So she went back to work. And yeah, just so viewers know, you have all these patents and you were working, in technology. Are you a rich guy?
No, because I work for other companies. And that was the agreement. I'm the engineer. You pay me my salary, whatever I invent.
So the patents, your name's on them, but you don't collect on them.
They used to give you $1, but they don't even do that anymore for the patents.
So this is not like you're a rich guy who's been doing this thing. You've had to work at it, including the fundraising.
Yes. Well, we didn't think we'd have to do fundraising. I thought I could just come back. Look how well this chair is changing people's lives. Isn't it obvious? Don't you want to just do it? And I can back out. Well, didn't work that way. You got to prove it. You got to prove it. You got to show this is going to work. So here we are 16 years later, still proving it, that this is working.
Your story is so incredible that I would think that, the Gates Foundation or somebody would be giving you tons of money to do this.
Well, we were hoping to go after them and ask soon. In the beginning, we're very small, this is kind of a new concept, and there's wheelchairs. There's so much more you can give in addition to a wheelchair. A wheelchair is the first step. We're learning that there are other steps. There's vocational training, there's physical therapy, occupational therapy, all this stuff that has to be bundled up for a group like Gates to get involved in it. But we're trying to figure out how to bundle all that up.
Are you pretty optimistic? I'm with you, man. I think you can do this. Do you feel like you can ramp this up?
Well, we have reached one milestone, as you mentioned earlier. Right. It's our society likes big numbers. So when I can give away wheelchairs, people say, "Oh yeah, that's interesting." But we gave away 1 million wheelchairs. All of a sudden, oh what? Wow. You did what? Could you tell me that again?
Now I'm curious. You're an engineer. Do you really precisely know the millionth wheelchair?
We know how many we paid for. And that's how we decided. If we paid for it, we provided it. Yeah, there are wheelchairs in warehouses all around in 90 countries, and we're not sure how many of them have given them out and when, but we know how many we've actually provided.
Wow. I should mention, you've got a gala coming up on July 13th. The people can go to freewheelchairmission.org.
Yes.
And you also said there's a little bonus for them.
Yeah, you can buy the tickets on our website, which is the best way. You can call our office too, but this is the best way on the website. And for people who haven't been before and they're listening to this show, there's a little code you can plug in, PBS SoCal, no space, all caps, and you get a 10% discount on the.
Oh, cool!
Because we want to see how many people we see the show and come to our events.
Okay, great. And also, I understand PBS is the show Visionary is doing a story on Free Wheelchair Mission, which will be should be airing later this year.
I think in September it'll be the first, and it's a show that PBS has been doing for 21 years, and they just pick groups that are doing visionary things, and they do a documentary on them.
Wow. So where would you like to see Free Wheelchair Mission, or what are your plans now? I mean, how long do you expect to be working on this?
Well, this kind of work keeps you young, just like your work keeps you young too. And we have a plan. We took us 16 years to get the first million. We're going to challenge ourselves now, and by 2025, we're going to do our second million. So in 8 years from now, we'll do our second
And you
million.
think you'll still be working at it?
I think I can handle another 8 more years of this, because it's really not work. It's just a lot of reward.
What's the biggest reward for you in doing this?
Well, it's great to be giving a wheelchair away in a developing country and changing a family like I described. It's also great to see people in America kind of wake up and understand that we have an obligation. There's reasons why we're such a wealthy country and we have such capacity, and it isn't to keep it to ourselves. It's to share it to the rest of the world. And I believe this is our obligation. And to see somebody discover, I'll never meet this person, I'll never be able to shake his hand, but I know if I give $80, so this person someone is going to get a wheelchair. And I can just imagine how that changes.
Wow.
And all of a sudden you
Yeah.
become worldly. You become a citizen of the world instead of a citizen of the United States.
Don, what a great note to end on. Thanks so much. Continued success with Free Wheelchair Mission.
Thank you. What a blessing to be here.
That's it for now. Thanks again to my guest, Don Schoendorfer. You can watch the show and past shows by going to pbssocal.org or rickreiff.com. You can also catch our shows and our post-show open mic chatter on YouTube. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again on Inside OC. Inside OC is brought to you by
Each new community 5 Point brings to life represents a promise delivered. Great neighborhoods are more than just places to live, they are places to connect. 5 Point is a proud sponsor of public television and community programming.
MemorialCare is transforming the way healthcare is delivered, keeping our communities and businesses healthy by guiding them on the path to wellness with easily accessible hospitals, physician offices, and outpatient centers. MemorialCare, leading the way.